Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first concert of 2020. My name is Paula Panchenko, and I am delighted to welcome you all here tonight. Tandem Press and the Jazz Studies program at the Mead-Witter School of Music at the University of Wisconsin-Madison are pleased to present the fifth year of the Tandem Press Friday Jazz Series. We're delighted to welcome you, our audience here, and those of you who are listening to us live on the web. Tonight, I am delighted to announce that this series is made possible with the incredible support of the John and Carolyn Peterson Foundation and the live streaming, which is organized by Buzz Kemper, Audrey Martinovich, Noah Gilfin, and David Alcorn of Audio for the Arts, is supported by the Brittingham Fund. This program could not have happened without Johannes Wallmann, the John and Carolyn Peterson Chair in Jazz Studies, and his colleagues Nick Moran, Chris Rottmeyer, and Les Thimick. I also want to thank the incredible music students who will be playing for you this evening. The program tonight will feature the Jazz Standards Ensemble and the Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble after the intermission, both directed by Nick Moran. During the intermission, we hope that you will view our latest exhibition entitled Immersed, which was curated by the entire staff at Tandem Press, because they are always immersed in prints. The prints were selected specifically from the last 10 years of Tandem's existence. Please also feel free to stroll through our studio and see the prints in progress. Tandem Press is open daily if you're not here tonight, and by appointment on the weekends. For those of you at home, there will be a short interview on the current exhibitions with the curators Sona, Pastel, Daneshgar, and Myszka Lewis at the Tandem Press Gallery. Welcome all again, and thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Thank you, Tandem Press, for having us here. My name is Nick Moran. I'm the director of actually both of the ensembles that you'll be hearing this evening. This is my first year actually directing the Jazz Standards Ensemble, and it's a great honor to do that. I've been hosting a jam session in Madison for over 20 years called the New Breed Jazz Jam, and there is where we play standards. And so a lot of the music you're hearing tonight are tunes that are played not only at jam sessions in our area, but jam sessions all around the world. It's the canon of jazz music. So I hope you enjoy these classic selections. We have about 7 for you tonight. We're going to start off with a Horace Silver tune. This is a tune that actually we played last semester, and we just brought back for you guys tonight. This is a tune entitled The Preacher. All right. By the way, how are we feeling on this Friday? Are we feeling okay? Yeah, good. Yeah, we made it to the weekend and everything. So these next selection of tunes is actually our kind of featured unit in this beginning of the second semester, the spring semester. As jazz musicians, we cannot forget the time period where bebop was king, and these next four selections are bebop tunes. One by one of the greatest artists of the bebop era, Mr. Dizzy Gillespie. They're going to start off with a tune entitled A Night in Tunisia. All right, we're going to continue with our tunes in the bebop era. They're going to play probably one of the most, probably the most recorded jazz standard of all time. This tune is entitled Body and Soul, popularized first by the great Coleman Hawkins, but there's been probably thousands of versions since then. And they're going to follow that after Body and Soul, and we're going to take it down for a nice ballad. They're going to follow that with two tunes by the great Charlie Parker, Scrapple from the Apple and Blues for Alice.
everyone, that last tune was called Scrapple from the Apple. This next tune is called Blues for Alex. All Charlie Parker stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our horns for the UW Jazz Standards Ensemble, one of which just joined our ensemble yesterday. So please show your love to the very new member of this band, Mackenzie Trinko. On trumpet, Beatrice Lawrence. And on alto saxophone, Mina Stumpfel. So in our first semester, we did a little unit on the great Fats Waller, and so we're going to bring back one of those tunes from our fall semester. This is the Jitterbug Waltz. All right, we have one more tune for you with this ensemble, and then we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with the UW Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble. But before we go, we have one more tune, and I'd like to also introduce the remaining members of this band. So on bass, and not only just holding down the bass part, but also playing all the chords as well for us, because we've noticed that we don't have a chordal instrument in this ensemble. So she's kind of doing double duty. How about it for Meredith Nesbitt on the bass? And our bus driver of this ensemble, how about it for John Payne on the drums? So our last tune for you is a Horace Silver composition. This is a very fun tune, brought in actually by Beatrice. This is Nika's Dream. Keep it going for the UW Jazz Standards Ensemble. Stick around, there's a lot more music. We'll be right back. Thank you.
I'm Buzz Kemper of Audio for the Arts, and once again, it's my pleasure to be talking to not just Paula, but actually a few people here from Tandem Press. But we're going to start with director Paula Panchenko, because you've got some great news. You always have a lot going on here at Tandem Press, and I always am so delighted to come out here and see what kind of wonderful prints you have up. But we're going to talk a little bit about this print exhibit. But first, the jazz series itself has some news, I understand. What's happening with the jazz series?
Well, we are absolutely delighted to announce tonight that we have received funding from the John and Carolyn Peterson Foundation, who donated a grant to us so that we can continue the jazz series for 10 years. So we are so excited about that. Now, the John and Carolyn Peterson Foundation was founded by the two people, John and Carolyn, but the foundation has now been taken over by the family, and it is a family foundation where their daughter and son-in-law and their children are on the board of the foundation. And they are all extremely interested in jazz, as were their parents, who actually funded Johannes Wallmann's position at the UW School of Music. And he is the professor of jazz receiving funding from that foundation. So it's an absolutely wonderful collaboration with the School of Music and with Tandem Press at the UW-Madison.
And Professor Wallmann, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the official title of his position is John and Carolyn Peterson, Professor of Jazz? Do I have that correct?
Professor of the Jazz Studies program. Okay. And it was actually established by the foundation, by John and Carolyn Peterson, who were fantastic fans of jazz and many other things in Madison, including the Chazen Museum, where we have our archive, and also Tandem Press. So it's an amazing thing that they have done and that the family has continued to do for Madison.
Well, that is really amazing. And so thank you to the Peterson family. That is terrific. We're so happy to be involved with the series itself. And again, I know I've said this before, but I am so grateful to you and the people who work with you here at Tandem Press for not only making this wonderful visual art more accessible to the public, but also doing music concerts. This is outside of your wheelhouse, and yet it's art, and you do it, and it's not easy. I know it takes a lot of work. I know that Sona has to give up her desk to me when I set up all my gear. And so just thank you so much for your dedication to that end of the art world as well.
Well, you know, what's really interesting is Audio for the Arts has enabled us to bring this concert to a much wider audience. So we get lots of people who come here to Tandem Press, which we're thrilled about. But we're really hoping that the Peterson family, who are in South Carolina for the winter, will be listening to this jazz concert tonight. And that's how far our reach is. So thank you so much as well.
Well, it's our pleasure. Thank you, Paula. And now let's talk a little bit about what this exhibit is about, and then we can bring in the curators to get more specific. But what is the display called Immersed?
It's called Immersed, and it is actually a series of prints that all the staff were involved in selecting for this exhibition. But it was spearheaded by our two curators who are going to join us right now, Sona Pastel Daneshgar and Myszka Lewis. And they also decided how it should be hung and how it should be displayed. And it does represent a series of prints from the last 10 years. Now, of course, we're not able to include everybody because we did quite a lot of work over the last 10 years, but this is the beginning and the initiation of a series of exhibitions such as this. When you go into a bookstore, you might see staff picks, and here you see the beginning of a wonderful series of exhibitions that will continue into the future. So I think we should call in our two curators.
The curators for Tandem Press are Sona, Pastel, Daneshgar, and Myszka Lewis. So, it's always great to talk to you guys. And these are also, by the way, these are also the two women who I most severely displace when we come in to do the live stream for the jazz series. So thank you very much for never yelling at me over that. That's terrific. So tell me about this exhibit, how this came about, and either one of you can start. But how did this exhibit come about? And it must have been a difficult process to actually pick which pieces to include and which to exclude. Correct?
Yeah, so basically, like Paula said before the break, this show was selected by the entire staff. So basically, we have 8 staff members. Everyone picked 2 to 3 pieces that they have, special affinities for many reasons, whether it's the master printers, it was such a feat of creative problem solving for them to make that print come to life, or for us that, a print that has a nice story that we've just fallen in love with after being around the work for several years. And there was a bit of crossover in people's selections, but also there were some outliers. And so then it really, once we had the list of selections, it became more of a curatorial problem of what will hang next to each other and look good in the space and, not overcrowd the space. Because again, there were many pieces that we love and adore and just didn't quite make it onto the walls because of sheer measurements.
You want to add to that?
Yeah, basically what Myszka was saying. The last show that we had was From the Vault, that was guest curated by Tom Garver, who used to be the director at what is now MMoCA here in Madison.
I enjoyed talking to him about that.
Yep, and so this is kind of a nice continuation of that, where we're pulling things out that aren't necessarily brand new, and giving people a chance to see some other works from our older inventory. So yeah, like Paula said, it's about 10 to 15 years worth of work here in the gallery. So.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask that because the stuff that we talked about with Tom Garver was from, like infinity, until now. So was this specifically set to be, it had to be pieces within the last 10 years or 15 years, or did it just kind of happen that way?
No, it just kind of happened that way. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, because I know Tom's show, I think, was the first 10 years of Tandem Press. So I think it just sort of happened organically, which is just kind of a nice surprise.
Cool. Yeah. So did you end up, after all the staff got their picks, and obviously there were going to be some duplicates, two staff members picking the same thing, but then I imagine you ended up with too many for the exhibit, is that correct? Okay, so then as curators, then is it up to you two to pare it down, and what was that process like?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was just the two of us, really. I mean, we're such a small staff, and we're able to, we're all in the same building, we're all in the same space, so we're able to talk a lot. And so it was kind of, checking in with each other and seeing, which one do you, would you prefer to have this one over this one if you had to choose one or the other? So there was just a lot of communication with the other staff members as well to sort of make that final selection.
So let's talk about some of the individual pieces, and I would like to, Myszka, let's start with you. Pick a piece or two that is particularly meaningful to you, or that you just kind of would like someone who's coming in to look at the exhibit to know more about before they come in, and let's just talk about that, unless that's putting you too much on the spot.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna pick more than one piece to talk about.
Oh, please.
Break the rules right off.
I've got no rules. Yeah.
So if you want to turn around, I actually kind of want to highlight just this corner of the gallery in general. One of my picks was this piece by Squeak Carnwath titled Perfect Studio. Her work pulls from, she kind of reuses a bunch of images throughout her prints and paintings. And so the log that's in there, the vase, and the guilt-free zone, these are some of the images that she reuses throughout her work. And the guilt-free zone is something that's always been very close to me in my heart, and kind of like the idea that this is titled Perfect Studio, and that is her space for guilt-free and to play and experiment. And I think it's really lovely how it speaks about everyday experiences for a wide range of people, but also specific to artists and kind of the creative activity that happens in a studio, and all of her little handwritten notes and stories in her work is just very interesting, and it tells a story in several different ways. And when it came to kind of laying out the exhibition, I just love how that piece flowed into these two pieces by Suzanne Caparel, and then also into the Mickley Thomas. I just think that there's some repeating shapes and colors with these four pieces that is something I hadn't thought about as a curator before laying out these pieces for the show. And so it was also a very nice, playful kind of finding of how these pieces fit together so nicely together.
Yeah, and I love this kind. I love that piece. It's got all the sort of jungle animal, zebra and leopard skin stuff, and I love how the pillow is just this stark white thing against all the other off white. I think this kind of stuff really fascinates me because it's great to get a look into the brain. It's kind of a meta thing, like let's get a look inside the brain of the artist, not only what they produce, but the process itself. And I love the guilt-free zone thing. Because I was raised Catholic, so I have no such thing. But yeah, that is a really great piece. Anything else you want to say about any of these four pieces, and then I'll get Sona's pick.
I mean, I could talk all day about them, but I won't steal the show. We'll have Sona talk about her picks. Yeah.
So our extended video will be Myszka Lewis talking all day about these pieces. I would actually be up for that.
Well, come to Jazz Night. We'll hang out and talk about it.
I'll be there. So yeah, cool. All right, Sona, what do you want to talk about specifically?
Yeah, so the piece here next to the one that Myszka selected is called Franchise by Suzanne Caparel. Myself and a few other staff members, with the horizontal stripes, actually selected that one. That was one where there was some overlap with some of the staff members here in terms of choosing artworks. I think this is a really beautiful piece from a color standpoint, a form standpoint, but then the background of the piece is also interesting to me. Suzanne Caparel travels a lot. She and her husband take road trips across the United States multiple times a year. She doesn't like to fly, so they always drive. And the colors that are in this, the bands of color that you see in this piece, are all based off of colors that she saw at different franchise restaurants during their trip. So the red is from McDonald's, and I don't remember the other ones off the top of my head, but I think that's a really nice example of a very beautiful piece, and then having a really interesting story behind it as well.
I love that because
there's also a story behind it.
Yeah, thank you, because of course the non-expert, someone like me, you're going to walk up to that and you're going to go, okay, it's a bunch of stripes of different colors, but what does it mean? Right. And now we know.
Yeah. Yes. Another one that I'd like to highlight is this piece over here. This is another selection of mine. This is by Michelle Grabner. Okay. This piece here, it's called Warm Red Gingham. Michelle Grabner is an artist, a curator, and she's a professor of art at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago. She's also an art critic. She's kind of does everything, Renaissance woman, as one would maybe say. A lot of her work is based around the home and taking processes that were used, that are typically known as women's work, and then creating a story behind that. So you can see here, gingham pattern is fabric that is used in a lot of home settings, like tablecloths, things like that. I just think it's a really beautiful, beautiful etching, and it's a nice representation of a lot of the work that she does. So, yep.
Okay. And is this just? Do you think the artist's intention was just an attractive design that was based on these crafts that were considered women's work, or do you think it's actually kind of like a feminist statement of some?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow, but I do get there. Okay, cool. That's great. And is there anything else that either of you would like to say that gee, I wish he had asked us X?
No, I think that kind of covers the exhibit pretty well. Good questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you hear that, Mom? So how long is this exhibit up?
It is up until February 21st. Yes. Just trying to remember. Yeah, end of February. I knew that much. But yeah, I think it's up till the 21st. So.
All right, great.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much, both of you. It's always fun to talk to both of you, and thanks for all you do here. And I just think you're both brilliant. So thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second half of our Friday night Tandem Press Jazz Concert. We're thrilled to have you all here. I just want to very quickly introduce the Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble. Remind everyone that these are incredible students from the Mead-Witter School of Music at the UW-Madison. And they are directed tonight by the terrific Nick Moran. And I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank the students for their wonderful, wonderful performing. So, enough said, over to the music.
Hello again. How we doing? We doing all right? All right. This is the UW Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble, and that first tune was a brand new composition for you. And I should say that, you know, our semester just started about 2 weeks ago, and that means we've had 2 rehearsals so far since then. So I'm really happy that they were able to bring this tune to you. It's a Michael Simon composition entitled Humble and Innocent, using the rhythm of Wawanko. This next tune is a Chucho Valdez classic entitled Claudia. This next tune is from the canon of actually kind of salsa music, which is actually born here in the United States in New York by a record label called La Fania. This is a Johnny Pacheco tune entitled La Esencia de Guaguancó. So actually, Jordan Kowalski and I on congas just got back from a pretty intense experience in Camagüey, Cuba, our sister city here in Madison, Wisconsin. Through the Madison Camagüey Sister City Association and the musicians and the Ministry of Culture in Cuba, we've been building a jazz festival over the last 5 years there. And this last trip, we just had it was about 10 different bands, 3 from the United States and 7 groups from Cuba, performing 4 nights in the Great Circuito Theater in downtown Camagüey. And it was an honor to do so. I bring that up because this tune, while Jordan and I were there, we probably heard it about 400 times. It's a classic tune by the great Miguel Matamoros, a band leader, a guitar player, and one of the pioneers of what we know as son music, or folk music from Cuba. And this tune is called Lágrimas Negras, or Black Tears, but it sounds cooler in Spanish. This is a song about lost love, so I hope you enjoy our version of Lágrimas Negras. I'm going to take this opportunity and introduce the band. We're going to do it in sections first. So we're going to start with our rhythm section. On that tune, he just played an instrument from Puerto Rico called the cuatro. He's also playing nylon string guitar. How about it for Jake Cruz? On the baby bass, Ariel Fogel. On the congas, I mentioned him before, but how about it for Jordan Kowalski? A new member to our ensemble on percussion. How about it for Henry Potasic? And on timbal, or in Cuba they call it the paila, Lily Finnegan. This is a composition by the Bronx Horns. This is a cha-cha entitled Catch the Feeling. We're playing this in the hopes that you will catch the feeling to dance, perhaps. Every year, or every time we do this, I always try to get people to dance, and I haven't been very successful. So maybe you could help us. This is a cha-cha, so you should be fine. right, because they were working hard for you, I'm going to introduce our horns. On trumpet, how about it for Nick Hill? Also on trumpet, how about it for Charlie Palm? On alto saxophone, Maggie Cousin. And on tenor saxophone, Bennett LeClaire. All right, we got one last tune for you for this evening, and this is your chance to dance one last time. I can hope. This is a cooker for you. This is a tune entitled Changiri, and we're going to leave this with you. Please, we have 2 other concerts later on this semester in March 5th, I believe, at Collins Recital Hall, and then at the end of April, we'll be performing our last concert of the semester. So please come check us out, and maybe bring a dance partner next time, too. All right, here's Changiri. Keep it going for the UW Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble. Thank you, Kim, for dancing. Thank you, Tandem Press and Paula Pachenko, for having us here. And then thank you, Audio for the Arts, for the wonderful sound. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I have a special round of applause again for Nick Moran? And another round of applause for the absolutely extraordinary music students. Thank you so very much. And Nick was telling us about the things that are happening at the School of Music, and many of you may not have been to the Hamel Center, but it is absolutely amazing, so I hope that you get to go there. But on February 28th, you can return here and be with us for the Blue Note Ensemble and the Contemporary Jazz Ensemble, and there will be very special guests coming to that particular concert. So please come back, welcome back. Thank you for coming tonight. Stay safe on the way home. Good night.